Hello and welcome to the Women in Industry podcast. My name is Kirsty Davies-Chinnock and my guest today is Angela Lawlor from Marvellous Manufacturing. Angela has an impressive 40 years experience of working in blue chip organisations, and she's now on a mission to get young people working in the manufacturing industries. Welcome, Angela. Lovely to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me, Kirsty, and you mentioning 40 years makes me feel very old.
Well, I'm at 34 years here, so I'm catching you up.
You are.
So tell me where the idea for Marvellous Manufacturing came from.
Well, I guess it was during lockdown, to be quite honest, and prior to that I'd worked as a contractor for Jaguar Land Rover, and it was during lockdown, and I was sat at home, I was doing some work for a client, and I thought, I really do miss manufacturing. I love it. It's definitely in my bones. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to go onto LinkedIn. I'm going to start making some more manufacturing connections because I really would like to get back into it when we come out of this. And the more I started making connections and talking to people in the industry, the more I realised we had a huge issue with trying to attract young people. And it really sparked my interest. I love young people anyway, absolutely, you know. I think they're great. They're so full of enthusiasm. So I, you know, as I say, I started having conversations with people. I started having conversations with careers leaders, with manufacturers, and realised we had a really, really big issue. And so I just thought, I'd really like to do something about it. My husband says, "And you're not on a mission to change the world." I say I am.
Why can't you be on a mission to change the world?
Exactly.
The thing I love about how you talk about young people, it just really resonates with how you want Marvellous Manufacturing to work,
Yes.
which is to engage, to nurture. And I think it's that nurture
Yeah.
that's really, really important. How have you found the response and the reaction from the young people you've spoken to?
It's interesting, actually. I mean, year sevens and year eights, they're great. They've got inquiry minds. They ask lots of questions. They're enthusiastic about everything, you know. As you go up through the school years, once you get to year 11, they're a bit more set in their ways. They're confident. They're cool. And sometimes it's quite difficult to actually, you know, to really get some engagement out of them. But once you put yourself on their level and use their language, then they start to engage. I was at a careers fair a couple of weeks ago. There were a bunch of young girls, probably about 15, 16, and I said to them, "Have you ever thought of manufacturing as a career?" And of course immediately they went, "Oh no, it's not for me." And I said, "Well, what about, you know, for example, if you think about the hair straighteners that you use every day, do you think there's a feature on them that's missing, or is there something about them that you could do better? Or your lipstick, what do you think of the holders for lipsticks? Do you like them, or could they be?" And that started their brain. You could see this light bulb moment started their brains thinking, and they went, "We never thought about that." So this is the important part. It's actually bringing it to them on their level.
I think you've raised an important point there about connecting with people on their level, using the language they want to do, communicate how they want to communicate. And I think manufacturing has an image of being old-fashioned and not moving with the times. But we know from lots of mutual connections that there's a lot of manufacturing companies at the forefront of technology, pushing the boundaries, trying new things. And, you know, I mean, most manufacturers are businesses. We're here to make money, so we'll communicate with our customers however they want to communicate with us because we want the order and therefore their money. So, but I think there still is that image that manufacturing is old-fashioned. Is that what a lot of young people are saying to you?
Oh yes, absolutely, and don't forget that this is being led by their parents as well, and their grandparents. And Nick Peters wrote an article a couple of years ago, which was really good, and there was a picture of a road with a ship at the end of it. And the article he wrote was about the fact that manufacturing isn't on our streets anymore. We haven't got a manufacturer at the end of our road like we used to have. They've all moved out of town. So our old-fashioned concept of the manufacturer at the end of the road was a dirty manufacturing place. The new units that they're in now, the digital twinning they're doing, the technology that they're using, people don't see those because they don't drive onto the industrial estates. They don't go into the factories to see that. And it's a picture we really should be putting out there more and more.
You're saying that Make UK promote each year a open day for factories to do. Is that something that you think is a good idea and we should get local schools involved?
So I came across manufacturing festivals in September 2020, Leeds Manufacturing Festival and Bradford Manufacturing Weeks. And I was absolutely blown away by what they were doing up there. And I actually sat the organisers down in front of me and I made them spill their brains. So what works, what doesn't work, how do you do it, how do you get people involved, and created an information pack, because I thought I want to go out to other manufacturers and encourage them to do manufacturing festivals as well. But you can't say to a manufacturer, put on a manufacturing festival, because they'll say, well, where do I even start? So I thought if I can create this pack from experience of Leeds and Bradford, at least they've got a starting point to be able to do that. So yes, it's great that Make UK are encouraging their members to actually do that. I think maybe, I don't know what support the manufacturers get from Make UK to do those open days, but I certainly think that manufacturers do need the support and the encouragement to be able to do it effectively.
I mean, that's the thing, you've got not only the logistics of having groups of people on site, you've got the health and safety risk assessments. You're going to have to provide additional PPE. That's going to come at a cost. You're going to have to stop production in some areas so you can explain it, or because it's not safe for them to walk through otherwise. So that comes at a cost. You're going to have somebody talking about what you do and how you do it, so they're not doing their day job. So that comes at a cost. Then you'll want them to go away with some sort of information on your company, so a goodie bag or something. So that comes at a cost. I mean, it costs thousands, absolutely thousands.
If you equate that to what you would spend in recruitment companies.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily seeing it as a negative, but if you've got this pack that says, here's a 20-point plan, follow it, then at least before you do it, you know what you've got to do, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
It's the planning that can take a lot of time.
Yeah, that's right.
And can people just get in contact with you and ask for this pack and you have a chat with them?
Yeah. I mean, there's a form on my website, on the Marvellous Manufacturing website, where they can request that pack, and that's free of charge.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, I'm going to go and fill in that form. Yay.
Great stuff.
So, I mean, we first met through Conex, and we met through there. And obviously, I've been doing my research on you. And as well as Marvellous Manufacturing, you've got a consultancy business and you've got a family. So how do you prioritise your workload? How do you juggle everything that's going on?
I think for me, certainly, I have to make sure I schedule everything in my diary, because otherwise I'd just get up of a morning and I'd just be drifting around and not get anything done. So I have to be really disciplined with myself.
It's when you get to our age as well, and you get the fog. that comes through. If I don't have something ping at me and tell me to do it, it just won't get done.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's definitely, it needs to be scheduled in the diary. Absolutely everything does, and then at least I know what my day looks like, and it's quite nice. I like the fact that if my son phones me up and he says, "Fancy coming for a dog walk at 1 o'clock today?" I can looking at, yeah, why not? Let's take an hour out. It's good. It means moving everything an hour up in my diary, but
sometimes that can be done.
Yes.
So I know you've had a successful career prior to Marvellous Manufacturing, and you've worked with SMEs and large corporations and everything else. And one of the things you've said about Marvellous Manufacturing is making skills planning and recruitment planning better for manufacturers.
Yeah.
Do you see a massive difference in that planning and execution between manufacturing SMEs and then, the big boys out there?
The larger corporates, they are lucky in that they can afford the staff to do the necessary planning. So you will have teams that will look after recruitment, will look after apprenticeships, and will handle all of that. So it's easier for them. They do the job well. They achieve what they want to achieve. SMEs, most of them, as you probably know, Kirsty, are family-owned businesses. And the owner will work in the business, and I'll guarantee that your business, I bet you do more than one job in your business, don't you? This is what most SMEs...
But I'm honestly really bad about giving myself extra jobs.
So to expect them, because time is so tight, because they have so much to do, to expect them to be able to properly plan and execute their the forward thinking, their future pipeline, it's really difficult for them, and it ends up that most SMEs have to take a knee-jerk reaction rather than a forward planning. And
I think when it comes to SMEs as well, quite often your costs, your margins are incredibly important. Well, they are to all businesses. Yeah. And you'll go, right, we'll take on one apprentice this year and we'll take on 2 next year. And then halfway through, you get really busy and you're like, why didn't we take on 2 apprentices? And then when you take on 2, it goes really quiet, and then that's a concern.
Yeah.
So I think you're right that it has to be a reaction rather than a planned expansion of the pipeline, purely for cost and practical reasons, really.
Yeah, I think though, a lot of businesses, they will have a 5-year plan, and there will be growth within that 5-year plan. But they have to make sure that within that as well is their future employee plan. It's really incredibly important. It's no good having this growth plan and not factoring in the additional employees you're going to need to meet that growth.
I mean, I find it really, really useful in the past to employ relatives of really good employees.
Yes.
But I mean, they've run out of siblings now, one family, which is just incredibly rude. I've got 4 of them. I mean, why couldn't there have been 6? I think, obviously, capturing the talent to start with, capturing their attention, getting them invested in you, and then retaining them once they've got their qualifications, whatever type of apprenticeship they're doing, then you need to look at their career with you and their succession, because you don't want them to go after 3 years. You want them still there in 20 years. And then they'll be line managers or directors, and they'll be training, the new pipeline of talent coming through. How do you find manufacturers look at retention? Is there more of a focus on that and how they're going to retain those employees they want to have a long career?
Again, I think SMEs find it incredibly difficult, and it's an actual fact that there is a 40% attrition rate with apprentices, which is shocking. It really is. If you were to compare that with if you're going out looking for new business, we all know that you're better off going for businesses, the low-hanging fruit, businesses you already do work with. Can I expand on that business with them? Rather, that is easier than trying to bring in brand new business. And it's the same with employees. What we should be looking at is, what have I got in the way of employees? How can I expand that? How can I make that better? How can I get it to better fit my business by upskilling, rather than having to go out, start again, look for new employees, go through all the rigmarole of recruiting, training. Are they going to stay? So I think it's really important that employees are nurtured once they're in place. And I think a lot of the issues with the attrition rate is potentially that the young people maybe aren't given the opportunities that they would like, that maybe their training plans need tweaking or aren't quite right for them. You know, we develop training plans, but we're all different. Each of us is different, and so you really need to make sure that that training plan is right for that employee. Then you won't lose them. Then you can really start to nurture them and make sure that they do want to stay within your business.
And one of the things that we find, all as individuals, is when we're in an environment or an industry where we're enjoying the role, we're working well, you form a nucleus of relationships. And I think one of the issues perhaps with apprentices coming into SMEs, and they're only coming in at one or two at a time, the next youngest person could be 10 years older than them. So they haven't got a community, which is where having the day at college is giving them that community. But I think that's not something that is going to be fixed for at all, probably, because if you need one apprentice or two apprentices, you're not going to take 10 on just so they've got some friends.
That's right, yeah. It is a real issue, and I spoke to a lady a couple of months ago. Her friend has always wanted to be a welder, but the reason that she hadn't gone and applied to be a welder is because there were no other women welders. Everywhere she looked, they were all male welders, and eventually she did find an employer and a training course who'd already got a female welder, and that's when she went for that job. And that's quite sad, really, you know, that's the situation. But you're right, for an SME, they can't afford to take on 10 apprentices just so that they've got... But, you know, I talked before about reverse mentoring. So although you might have young people come in, if you can pair them up with an older person where they can actually mentor each other, then that gives that young person some value and some purpose within the business.
We're back again to communication, which, when you look at someone who's 16, 17 or 18, a lot of them can't conceive of being really good friends with somebody in their 30s, whereas somebody in their 50s is friends with someone in their 30s and friends with somebody in their 70s. Yeah. We don't think anything of it. But they need to have those experiences of developing those work relationships where sort of age and demographic doesn't really matter. It's about you've got common ground in the job that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I would agree with you on that, yeah.
So talking about those relationships, Joanna from episode 1, she talked about her metal mates. She's from the metal industries. So have you got any particular manufacturing mates? Any individuals who've given you any particular help or inspiration?
I certainly have, and I consider myself quite lucky, really. There are some lovely, lovely people around me who are always willing to help. I mean, we mentioned Sam Bainham from Connex Portal. Sam's my moaning board as opposed to a sounding board. So whenever I've got anything that I want to have a moan about or a grump about, Sam's great because I can just unload on him, and he's just so laid back and so relaxed. So it's really nice, and I know I could say anything to Sam and it won't go any further, you know. So he's definitely up there. Adam Payne, he's great. There have been a number of times when I've been stuck with something, I've not been sure about something, and I'll message Adam and he'd straight away, come on, jump on a call, let's go through it. He's just brilliant. He's definitely a good friend to have in your bag. Bob Gibbon. Bob has mentored me on a number of occasions, bless him. Bob makes me think about things, because I'm one of these people who, let's do it now, let's just do it and see what happens. And Bob's like, okay, if you do it, what's going to happen? So I'll say, well, this will happen. And what will happen after that? Oh, okay. So Bob is great. Bob Gibbon is just brilliant, you know. And I think as well, Luke Appleby and definitely Lee Howarth. They've been incredibly supportive of what I've been trying to do. So I would say metal mates, they're definitely mine.
And another question I'm interested to hear your answer to is, particularly with your role working with young people now, think back to when you were 15 and 15-year-old you, would you imagine this is what Angela's doing?
I probably could, to be quite honest. When I was 15, I actually worked at British Home Stores in the restaurants, had a Saturday job, and all through my exams I used to go in there in between my exams. And when I finished my exams, they offered me a full-time permanent job, and I was so excited. I loved working for British Home Stores. And went home and told my mum, and she told me I couldn't accept it, because she didn't want to tell the neighbours I was working at British Home Stores. So I got pushed into an office. And I have to say, Kirsty, I hate office work. I've always hated office work. So I think if somebody had given me a little more direction at 15, I think I would have been in this industry a lot longer. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that, again, it goes back to perceptions of, you know, the dirty factory at the end of the road or working in British Home Stores. And if we can take those experiences and understand that young people are still being pushed into things they maybe don't want to do, or have preconceptions or preconceived ideas because of what they've heard, sort of the fake news aspect, then we'll understand them more.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why I want to get into schools and talk about all aspects of manufacturing, so that the students of today can make a more informed choice instead of making a tunnel vision choice that's been influenced by their parents and their family. Yeah.
No, I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Moving away from Marvellous Manufacturing.
Yes.
One thing I was really excited to sort of see that you do is your work with the Freedom of Spirit Trust for Border Collies.
My passion.
Everybody I've spoken to so far has something away from their job, which they're also still incredibly passionate about, but something else they invest a lot of time and effort into. So how did you get involved with this trust?
Some years ago, we decided that we'd like to have a dog, and rather than just go out and buy a pretty one, we decided we'd really do our homework and decide which dog would be right for us. And we settled on a border collie, and we wanted a rescue dog as well. So we went to the Border Collie Trust in Rugeley and had a dog from them. And obviously I wanted to do more research, and I found that Barbara Sykes, who runs the Freedom of Spirit Trust for Border Collies, she's actually written several books about Border Collies. She also was travelling around the country lecturing about them. She's incredibly passionate about Border Collies. She has a farm. The rescue centre is on her farm. Dame Ellen MacArthur is patron of the charity.
Wow.
It really is a very well run charity, and Barbara is just she's up in Bradford, and she's a typical northern farmer. She tells it as it is. So, as I say, we'd got our original dog from the Border Collie Trust, and I'd bought Barbara's books, and I'd been on her website. And a couple of years later, we decided I'd like another Border Collie. So I happened to go on her website and saw Barney on there and phoned her up, and I said, I've seen Barney, what's he like? And she said, he's a little git. And I said, well, he sounds like my type of dog. And that's when our relationship first started. And I've been up there a few times, I've phoned her, we message each other. And any time I'm going up north for any reason, I always take her some big bags of chicken feet, pig's noses, all sorts, and go over there and see Barbara and see the dogs. And I just love Border Collies, and I've also been instrumental in actually sending some up to Barbara. I've had a few people from Wales have been in touch with me. They've got Border Collies that they've rescued from farms and they don't know what to do with them, so I've actually paid to have them transported up to Barbara. She looks after them, she tries to rehome them. If they can't be rehomed, they stay as a sanctuary dog for the rest of their life with Barbara. So I just love the charity.
That sounds like she's doing so much amazing work.
Yeah.
And Border Collies take a lot of exercising and need a lot of land for them to run about. So
not at all. That's a myth.
Really?
You can run a Border Collie all day and he'll still keep going. What they need is mental stimulation.
So they're more of a sniff.
Yeah. So I will do training with mine.
Yeah.
I do agility with them, dog agility with them as well. So up until we went into lockdown, you quite often find me every weekend around the country taking part in agility shows, running my mad Border Collies.
It's our current dog trainer, bless him. He wants people to stop using the phrase taking the dog for a walk and using the phrase taking the dog for a sniff, because he said they get much more enjoyment and mental stimulation out about the new scents than actually walking around the block. So what's the most important thing for you to achieve? What's your goal for this year?
For this year is really a real push on getting schools and students talking about manufacturing. We have to paint a picture for them to see. You know, we have to get them talking about it. For me, that is the number one thing. Let's get them talking. Let's get them interested.
Well, hopefully you'll do that. So thank you very much. If anybody would like to work with Angela on engaging their future pipeline of talented employees from their local schools or colleges, please do get in touch with her via her website, Marvellous Manufacturing. Thank you very much, Angela. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Kirsty. I've really enjoyed it.